Hey guys, it's Sahel here again. Just wanted to do another video on Facebook ads. Last video we covered ad placement. This time I'm going to cover a little bit more about targeting, just to give you a little bit more background and some ideas on how to target more precisely to make your ads ROI a lot better and get some more sales for less money. So we see our ads manager here. We'll just create a new ad as a dummy for this. Again, we choose page post engagement. Go back to our social salon example. That's the post from that page that we've seen before. We'll leave all this stuff as is because we covered that last time. Now, even though we've got this post here, I'm not going to talk about audiences specifically for that shirt. We'll just talk about targeting options you have here. So custom audiences we'll cover in another video. But now we're going to cover the rest of these variables that we can control here. So location is the first one. You can just broadly target by countries, which is quite easy. But as you can see here, you can also target by states. And you might even be able, in Europe, you might be able to target by municipalities or whatever they have there. But have a play around with that. If you've got a shirt that is for a specific region-based, or for an interest that's predominantly, in the southern areas of a certain country, or certain states are more popular, more likely to be into that sort of activity, then definitely don't be putting your ad in front of the whole country. You'll come down and be a little bit more specific and target individual states and things like that. So that's your first level of targeting, where you can get a little bit more specific with stuff. Obviously, age is another area where you get a bit more specific. Instead of putting it in front of everyone on Facebook, you can narrow it down to people who you think will buy that shirt. As I said in a previous video, we generally advertise from 20, 21, but more commonly from 25 and older, up till 50, 55. We have even advertised up to 64, which is the highest age I think that there is there. You might be surprised, but you do still sell shirts to the older generation, so don't think that they're not internet savvy and they're not going to buy on the internet because they're scared, because they do buy. So do a bit of research on your niche, work out the age group that your particular shirt relates to, and narrow that down here. Gender's the next one, pretty simple, men or women or both, depending on what who your shirt's targeted at. You might change that there. Languages, so if you're working in a foreign country, Italy, Germany, that sort of thing, and you want to target by languages, you can. Again, like I think languages is probably more, we've never done languages just to start with, but I think languages is probably more if you're trying to target, say Italians who live in America. So you'd have America here, or United States, and then down here you might choose languages as Italian, which would then give you, or may give you, Italian-speaking people who live in the US. Obviously, if you're targeting Italians in Italy, you would just target by location, so you wouldn't worry about your language there. You've got more demographics here, and it's really up to you guys to have a play with this, but just as a quick overview, you've got things like relationship status, so single, divorced, married, engaged, those sorts of things. Have a look in there. Can help you narrow down your audience. You've also got education levels, so college grads, things like that in there. Fields of study, so if you're targeting people by their occupation or by the courses that they've done or something like that, then you've got that there. Have a look at it. Schools that they've attended to. Work, you've got people, employers, so if they say they're employed by Honeywell or some company, you can target by that. Same thing with job titles and industries. So just have a look through all this sort of stuff. We're not going to cover every single little detail there. That's for you guys to have a play around with. But just know that that demographic information is available to narrow down your audience and get more precise with your ads. The main thing we target on, and a lot of people doing shirts, is interest-based targeting. So say we wanted to do a shirt on redheads or red hair. We just come down to our interests and we type in red hair or redhead and see what comes up. Facebook's really good. It gives us a few suggestions, and it tells us here, so red hair, there's 4,362,000 people interested in red hair or pages that relate to red hair. So we can come in here and just select red hair, women, for example. Let's just do this now, 25 to 45, say. And Facebook comes back and says, in the United States, that age group, for females, interested in red hair, 220,000 people. Now, as we touched on previously, probably a bit too big to start off with, not specific enough of an audience to put an ad out there and hope to sell and make money on that. So we'd want to target a little bit more specifically. With targeting, so we would class this as broad interests. So red hair is very broad. Likewise, if you're going to target people who like golf and you put golf in, that's very broad. To get a bit more specific with your targeting, you want to start looking at other layers, I guess. So you start looking at celebrities or athletes in that niche and events in that niche and groups or communities in that niche or brands, manufacturers in that niche. The theory behind that, or the idea, is pretty simple. There's a lot of people that might like golf or golf-related pages, but for someone to like a golf equipment manufacturer's page, they're probably going to be a little bit more passionate about golf than just your everyday hacker. Same thing with events and things like that. You know, your everyday hacker is not necessarily going to like the World Golf Match Play Championships, whereas passionate golfers will know about it and be more likely to like that page. So by adding in interests, not just the broad interests being golf, but interests based on those things that we mentioned, athletes or celebrities in that area, events in that area, groups or communities, brands, manufacturers, those sorts of things, looking outside that broad interest, you start getting in front of people who are more passionate about that particular niche. So to find those other interests, there's a couple of tools that we can use. We can just use Facebook itself and mess around by typing in red hair and see what else it brings up. So now it brings up red hair is awesome, and we probably punch this into a Facebook page and just check out the page before we add it as an interest, just to see what it's all about. Here you go, red hair love community, so we could try and target that. Forget what that was. It red hair. Oh, that's right, red hair is awesome. So you just want to do a bit more research instead of just clicking whatever the interest is and going, yep, let's throw it in front of these people. Go to the actual page, see what it's about, and just check that the people who like that page are going to be people that might buy your shirt. Obviously, something like girls with red hair, you want to be a bit careful with pages like that, because you know it could be one of those pages that some guy runs with hot redhead girls on there, and all the people that like the page are actually guys, not girls, so they're not going to buy your shirt. The other great tool you can use is obviously Google. So start Googling, you know, events, athletes, celebrities, groups, communities, brands, all that sort of stuff in the niche that you're interested in. And another great tool, which we'll cover in another video, is a tool called Facebook Audience Insights, which basically lets you put in interests and targeting options like locations and ages and gender and things like that, and put in interests, and then it will then go and show you, based on that interest, what pages people who have that interest like. So that's where it'll start showing you manufacturers and things like magazines, publications, shopping websites and things like that, where people who like that interest shop and what they read and things like that, which can really help you get in front of those passionate people again. So that's the main thing there. Your interest is where you really get in front of the right people, and that's where you make your money. So do a lot of research on this. As I said, Google, we'll cover Audience Insights as well. But you really need to think about this here, because just going for one interest, the broad interest being golf or red hair or something like that, you're going to get in front of a lot of people who aren't necessarily passionate about it. Behaviours here, we haven't really done much with it, but it lets you choose, like the main categories that we've ever looked at are things like online spenders, active and engaged. You can see here Facebook will actually explain what it is, and you can play around with this by doing some split testing of your own. We've never really had, you know, too much success with it, so we don't really do it. Our theory is, you know, just because Facebook's categorised this person as someone who has spent online using whatever metrics they use, it doesn't necessarily mean they're more inclined to buy your shirt than someone who isn't in that category. So that's why we don't muck around with that. And more categories, to be honest, I've never looked at this, so there's not much in there. But have a play with these other things, as we said, languages, more demographics, things like that. If you think it can be useful for your niche or your shirt design idea, then have a play with it. Always split test your ads so that you can track, if you start putting more demographics and muck around with things like, whether someone's married or divorced or engaged or things like that. If you split them into two separate tests, then you'll be able to, two separate ads, you'll be able to test which one performs better. Okay, so that basically covers what I wanted to touch on in this video on Facebook ads and targeting. We've covered, location, ages, gender, and the main one being interest and having a look outside the broad interest. If you have any questions on this or anything else that we've covered so far or anything we haven't covered, please post them in the group. No questions are too silly because we've all been there, even ourselves. We've had those basic questions before that we thought were too silly to ask. But if you don't ask, you'll never know, and chances are 10 other people have the same question. So putting it in the group will let other people see it. Talk to you soon.